Brian? Joel Moon, has he made it for tomorrow?
No, he's not. No, he's out. He's not too far off, but I think the safe things to wait till next week.
How much of a quandary does that give you?
Well, not much of a quandary really. Jordan Lilly will come in and he'll start. So Jordan's been good for us when he's played just recently. So but obviously you want your best team out there, and Moon is certainly part of that. So a bit of an issue, but gives Jordan a chance to show what he's doing.
Everyone else okay?
Brett Ferris is getting very close. But again, the wise thing is just to make sure he gets another week's running with the knee there. And Rob obviously took the early guilty plea, so he misses out with a game ban. So a couple missing there, but it's okay.
Any complaints with Rob?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. Once you get charged, with a level of grading. He was charged with a grade B. And once you get charged with that, it's hard then to change that. My point is that we could have gone in there and tried to argue that it was a grade A. It wasn't the worst headbutt I've ever seen in my life, and it was more of an aggressive upper body drive really than an headbutt, from Rob, whose record's just, crazily good for a bloke who gets run at every single week. And people try to physically dominate Rob throughout his career to rarely lose his rag. I won't say never, but to rarely lose his rag and to rarely show any sort of cynicism in his game has been brilliant. And I've hoped that the people who are making the judgments, who stick the judgment, the grading on it, would have taken all that into account, rather than just say that's a grade B, same as everybody else says, and it's up to you a lot to go defend him. Maybe that's the system, I don't know, but no, I don't have it. It was an headbutt, albeit a very small one.
How do you cope with Cass this week?
First off, recognise that they are a good team, and which is not an hard thing to do because they are very good. And they're not running out of gas, they're not running out of steam, they're cracking on, they're winning some games and pulling through some difficult games as well, which is a good trait to have. So I think if you recognise that to start with, it gives you a good standpoint. So we know. Well, we'd like to beat them. They've beaten 3 times already this year, so we'd like to beat them. So yeah, I don't think there's too much dramatically changed from what they do. Played a bit more to Ben Roberts than they were at the start of the year, but there's not too much dramatic changes. But they are still very good at it. So,
in terms of what you do, is there any temptation to try and do something different to the last 3 times?
No, well, yeah, there is, yeah, of course. Just do it better than what we did. And the first attempts that we had, we fell woefully short. And then the second attempt we had at Magic Weekend was good, but from some defensive blunders. And then never really quite got going against Cass at home at our place. So I think for us, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but stringing a good level of performance together for enough time. I'm not so sure about the old 80 minutes cliche thing, because I don't think anybody strings 80 minutes together, but certainly enough time together where we can compete and get in front, and that's one of the main things for us.
Round 3, is it relevant with regard to this game?
Not in terms of planning. Not in terms of planning or anything strategic, it's not. But it's still there, isn't it? Somebody goes and busts your nose, you don't forget it, do you? So, listen, I think once the players start to blow a little bit and get a bit gassy, like both the teams will do, then everything goes out the window. It's just that moment then, and I don't think that we haven't mentioned it this week, and we won't mention it in the build-up, and that's gone. But it did happen, and we don't forget that.
Do you feel like you're in a better position to handle Cass here and now than you have been in the last 3, or not?
I don't know. I thought the Magic Weekend, I thought we were in good shape. I thought we were in a good run of form there, and had a fair few things together, and it just didn't happen. It was a relatively competitive scoreline, and a relatively competitive game, albeit that we never seem to be able to. We never looked like beating them actually, throughout the game, but it was competitive. And then over here at our place, again a couple of blunders in there. So I don't think we've been that far off them on occasions, but they are out in front and they are doing enough just to keep everybody thinking, they're a good team. We're going to have to be good to beat them, and it doesn't look like they're going to run out of form or run out of steam. So I think we're in reasonable shape right now, and I think it's a funny one. I think some of the bad loss we had against Wakefield a couple of weeks ago. It just gives you a bit of focus, doesn't it? It just makes you sharpen up a little bit. Not that we'd have been, lethargic at any stage towards this back end of the year, but sometimes they're not the worst thing in the world to happen to you.
Thank you, Brian. Brian, are Castleford now equals?
Good beard.
Well, try it.
How long have you had that for?
About 3 years.
Have you?
No. No, you're embarrassing me now, Brian.
Right.
Castleford, often been seen as your rivals, but are they an equal now? Is in a top four? Are they a consistent top four team now, do you feel?
If you talk about this year, for sure, of course they are. Yeah, they've got the league leaders shield and been a standout, and and done it comfortably as well, it would seem. If you're going to talk about consistent top four, add 5, 6, 7 seasons to that, then you can talk about consistent top four. But certainly this year they've been the most consistent team going.
Do you expect them to kick on from this?
It's an interesting one. This hasn't come out the blue. This version of Castleford that we see, their offence has been extremely good for the last 3, 4, maybe 5 seasons, and probably not as consistent as it's been, but certainly come up with some. When Luke Dawn was there, when Rangi Chase was there, they come up with some stuff that all of us were picking and choosing what we wanted to copy off from Castleford type of thing, and their defence backs it up. I also think they're playing with a level of confidence. People like Luke Gale and Paul McShane have really nailed this year. Paul McShane in particular, I think. It's not that he's any fitter or any stronger or any bigger, it's just that he's playing with more confidence now and playing with the conviction that he's probably been lacking. So if you're asking me, will it continue? I think it will do. I don't think they're going to replicate what happened in 2017. I think this is a continuation of what started probably since Darryl got there.
Given that you've both already qualified for the semi-finals, do you think this game will be any different to the other 3?
Well, I know they don't like us. I don't think anybody in Castleford. I meet some people from Castleford sometimes, and they're not shy in telling you what you think about Leeds, and we've been beat 3 times off them. So you might think there's not much in it this game because we're in the top 4, but we want to secure a second spot, which we haven't quite done just yet, and we don't want to lose again to them.
And how much of a bonus is it for you that you have secured your playoff spot with 3 games to go?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think this is a conversation for when the 30 league rounds are done. You can sit back and reflect and where we were last year to where we are now. I think it's worth talking about, but I'll do that at round 30.
Yeah. Does it maybe change your approach to the final couple of games, because it's not do or die, is it, essentially for you in the next 3 games?
Not necessarily so. If we had 40-man squads, and I was resting 23 players every single week, I may think, right, strategically, let's turn it upside down and let's go play some bloke. Don't have 40-man squads, and there's about 2 blokes each week who don't play, and usually 3 or 4 of them are injured. We've got a couple of blokes at Featherstone. I don't have a raft of players that don't play each week, so but there's not much. Even if we had a really strategic thing to do for the last 2 or 3, we don't have that much movement in it. So keeping form, maintaining fitness, keeping injury free, not being erratic with what we do, and not losing form. I think not making sure that what you're talking about there doesn't seep through to the players. The attitude of it doesn't really matter because we're in the top 4 now and everything's about the semi. Well, you don't want to limp in there. You don't want to be going into the semi off a couple of pull ones.
Can I ask you about Jack Walker? A lot of people raised an eyebrow when he said initially he wasn't going to re-sign with a club. He's had to wait. He's come back in. He's been fantastic. Do you see him growing as a person now?
He hasn't had to wait. He was him that was waiting.
I mean,
he hasn't had to wait.
He wasn't straight in the team though, was he? He had to wait if Ashton was number one, and now he's.
That's right. Yeah. That's right though, isn't it?
Yeah, he had to wait for his turn in the team.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, but how impressed are you with how he's come in? Because his performances have been fantastic. I mean, you wouldn't think he was at the age he is.
He's continuing what he did when he first played. I think his first game was Saints at our place, I think, in the league a few rounds ago now. And it was one of those you think, hey, that's good that. And then he backed it up the week after, I think, played Huddersfield. And I don't speak for everybody else, but I thought, I wonder if you can keep this up. He's still only 18, 17 at the time, and he's backing it up. He's backing it up, and it's an interesting episode really, because Ash Golden, I rate Ash Golden. I think he's a very good fullback. Defensively, really, really good. And if there's anything you accuse Jack Walker's game of, is that he probably needs to have a bit more bite about his defensive game, where Ash Golden has already proven he's an outstanding, brilliant defender. You know, ball and all tackles, saving tries. Did up at the Magic weekend especially. So it's not an easy decision to pick one over the other, and when you leave one out, it's not an easy conversation to have. But I've got to tell you, Jack, I think Jack's conduct since he's been playing has been good. And you know, some of that humility in and amongst Ash Golden, you know, and the way they train with each other and the way that they rotate each other in the teams, is very good. I also need to give Ash Golden a lot of credit, because his level of humility, it is humbling to watch. It's great, you know. For such a young man, Ash Golden, to then have this situation where he's not in the team, and it's right that he's not in the team. Jack Walker's playing better at the moment. Yet to conduct himself like he does, with as much integrity and as much humility for such a young man, I think that's great. And I'm not sure what the season holds for both those players. And you know, if we make the grand final, who will play? I can't predict that. But I do know it'll be the right choice. Whoever gets picked, it'll be the right choice based on performance, and whoever doesn't play will be right behind the team. And that's a perfect scenario for me as a coach. You can't. You know, I should film it. Just show young men how to behave when things don't go your way. So it's a great story of what's going on at the moment.
And just finally, you made a few comments about the play of the ball last week. Has anyone spoken to you about it? Do you expect anyone to react to what you said after the game with Hull last week?
No, because I probably don't put it across with enough corporate gobbledygook, and because I probably speak a bit too frank. It just upsets a few people, doesn't it? Nobody takes me on. I don't regret anything I said. I think it's an horrible part of our game. I don't know how you'd sell our game to randoms on that facet of the game. But it's the king and his birthday suit. Some of the stuff that goes on, it's king and his birthday suit, where people just. I'm looking at some things, and I just can't work it out. And I'm looking round at some officials and some administrators and whoever's and referees and players and coaches, and nobody seems to mention it. So I don't regret anything I said. I don't think it's a tactic Hull use on their own. And I know I've been guilty of in the past. I think Brian Carney's I was told, I didn't see, Brian Carney flippantly quipped afterwards that, well, Leeds do this as well. Well, if Leeds do this as well, why does that make it any? It doesn't make it any more easy. And I think I said in the interview, we're all guilty of it. But nobody wants to talk about it, so let's just carry on and smooth over it and paper over that crack and just pretend it's not there.
Do you feel you have a responsibility to keep bringing that up then?
You know, so we got hammered last year. My team got hammered last year, rightly so, because we were not square at marker. Yet at the same time, I'm recognising that players would move off the mark to play the ball. So they'd move off the mark to go play a ball, which would be a yard to the side of our first marker. Then they'd play it, the dummy half would pick it up and run, and our first marker get involved, and we'd concede a penalty. So if you freeze frame it and ask us, will we not square at marker? The answer is yes, we're not square at marker, but there's a reason for it. And after a bit of an inquiry, there's a recognition that, yep, they are, from some people, yeah, they are playing it off the mark. Nothing gets done about it. So whether this is good to hear or not, so I had to coach my players that when that player moves off the mark, you've got to both run sideways and go stand where he plays it. Now, you go look at too much footage that we had last year, but I've got Adam Cuthbertson and Jamie Jones and Carl Abbott just stood there, almost like a beacon on purpose saying, I'm not moving. It's them that's moving. Can you not see this? It's them that's moving. It never worked. So I've had to coach my players the wrong thing to catch up with where the game's at. Now that gets me. That's hard. And this is another thing that I'm seeing in the game where if they're finding it tough to get out there, just let go of the ball. And this is another wrong thing that's happening in the game. My prediction is that I'll just have to get on with it and make sure that we peel away from the player on the ground as almost like they're made of eggshells and not allowed to touch them in case they decide to lose the ball. Yeah, I feel responsible for it. I do feel responsible.
Brian, just back to the game tomorrow, first v second obviously, and the rivalry that goes on. As a rugby league fan and coach and perhaps other fans as well, do you think this is the fixture? I know I'm jumping the gun here. Do you think this is the fixture that people want to see in the grand final?
There'll be a few million people over on that side of the border saying no. It would be a good one. Yeah, it would be a good one. I think West Yorkshire would be empty, wouldn't it, if it was?
And looking ahead, of course, to the match, with the 3 defeats against Cast this season, how much of tomorrow is going to be about showing progression for your side? Yeah,
I think that's a fair thing to say. You know, if we lose again to them, it won't make pretty writing. It's not the end of anything, and it gives them great bragging rights, doesn't it? You know, for 2017, it gives them great bragging rights. But you know, I'll maintain this as long as there is a progression for us, and we compete. I mean, they are a good team, Castleford, and they're working on things. They would have been working on things that no other team's working on. Not because they've got vision or insight that nobody else has, it's because there's some other parts of the game which are so healthy, where for the majority of us we're working on some stuff that they don't need to. Therefore they're progressing and developing and coming up with players and coming up with a defensive system, which we're still, most other teams, you know, by this stage of the season you would hope we've got honed in, but spent the majority of the year trying to fix up some stuff, and certainly my team, we've been fixing up some stuff throughout the year. So if we can compete with Castleford and run them really, really close, I think that's a good start point. Do we want to win? Because, you know, and afterwards I'd like to be able to say we beat Castleford. But if after the game we have progressed and we can feel confident that the next time we play them, because that'd be the most important game, the next time we play them, we've got a good chance of winning. That's the main aim.
Yeah, you mentioned that confidence there, and there's two sides to this, of course. There's securing second place, and then there's, of course, you know, beating Cas for the first time this season. Do you think that can be overstated? I don't know if there's any kind of mental block that comes with the results against them this season, but do you think the confidence part of this, with a win tomorrow, can be overstated at all?
Yeah, I think it can be overstated, and I don't think there's a mental block. We're talking about one season. They're having a great season, Castleford. In as a reaction to a question earlier about it, knock together 3 or 4 seasons like this and you start talking about consisting, you start talking about you know, all sorts of words, continuation and progression as a team, and you know, if they can maintain league leaders the following season and get close to a Challenge Cup final or the grand final the following year and the year after that and the year after that and the year after that, and then we keep losing out to them, then we might start developing a mental block. They've had a great season. We've had some shaky moments. They've played extremely well in all the games we've played against them. So there's no real issue other than bragging rights. It's just hard. It's hard to lose sometimes, you know, and you lose to your arch rivals. It's not easy. If we lose again tomorrow night, as I say, it will give them great bragging rights for 2017. But nobody's going to have to go see a psychiatrist on Monday morning. That's what I'm here for.